Hello everyone. So for this video, I'm going to be working on my motorcycle fender right here. This is for my 93 Honda Shadow that I'm turning into a bobber, quote unquote bobber, leaving the rear suspension. But I had cut off the rear fender, and I'm putting on this little solo fender that I got from a company called TJ Brutal. I was hoping that I could just get the fender, drill the holes and mount it, but upon delivery, I noticed that the center where it was welded, it's two pieces welded together, is nice and sanded and smooth, but as you can see where they bent the fender to make it round and curved, you can see all the marks that were left from the machine, so these slight ridges here. And that's gonna obviously show through the paint, and I didn't really like the look of that. I was gonna return it and get a different fender from a different company, but it cost me 50 bucks shipping that they're not going to return. So I am not gonna be out 50 bucks when I can just fix it. So I don't really have a ton of time to be doing this, but they forced my hand. So I figured I'd make a video on how I plan on smoothing this out. So I'm kind of new to smoothing this kind of stuff out, so I think I'm going to take the attack of using my angle grinder here. My angle grinder does not have a grinding wheel on it. Instead, it has this flap disc, I think that's what they call it, and what it is basically it's a bunch of sandpaper folded on edge. So it's a little less aggressive than your standard grinding wheel. They come in different grits. This just happens to be an 80 grit. And I'm going to use that with probably light pressure to get on here and start smoothing this out. We'll see what kind of finish it gives, and then if I need to do some sanding after the fact with maybe an orbital sander or just sanding by hand to get it to the smooth finish that I want, then I can basically cross that bridge when I get to it. I guess another option that I could do is just use some people mentioned online, use some high build primer that I could easily sand smooth from there. So, but again, I guess we'll see how the angle grinder does, and we'll go from there. So let's get started. All right, well, let's see how this turns out. I think it looks pretty good. So let's check it out. So obviously there is the side that I haven't touched yet. It's got all those ridges, and you come over here, and here is the side that I have ground off with that flap disc. And I mean, you can definitely still see them a little bit, but you can't feel them, which is pretty good. Now, it obviously doesn't leave the smoothest surface. I mean, it's pretty smooth, but you can see all the little marks. So basically the sanding marks from that wheel. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the whole thing, and then I'm gonna have to research some options on seeing if I can make this even smoother with either my sander or hand sand or whatever. So I'm gonna do the whole fender. All right, got the whole fender cleaned up with the angle grinder, with that flap disc 80 grit sanding wheel. Obviously there's a lot of different colors, a lot of different angles that I was holding it at, so hopefully now when I go to sand it, it'll kind of smooth out that surface even more. Although it's actually pretty nice, but you still can see all the different scratch patterns because of how aggressive that is. But again, that flap wheel is pretty nice. Still not as aggressive as a grinding wheel, so works pretty well. All right, I'm gonna give my woodworking sander a shot at this and see if I can smooth this out even more. All right, we'll see how this goes. All right, so it's a little better. Not perfect. you can see these little brighter spots here are definitely small impressions that were left from the angle grinder that my orbital sander is just kind of flying over. So I think I'm just going to spend some more time with the sander, see if I can get some more of those marks out, and I think it's going to look pretty good. Overall, if I could get it to look like this area right here, that's pretty sweet. I could even go with a finer grit sandpaper when I'm done. But I think, you know, getting it pretty good with these two machines will be good enough. And then spray some primer on there and maybe a few coats with some sanding in between. And then the final coat of paint and then clear coat. All right, so I just finished sanding it with my orbital sander, which is a woodworking sander. So it's not really, you know, conducive for metalworking, but you know, this is what I got. I got a wood shop in here. So I went 80 grit on the sandpaper for the orbital sander. Then I moved it up to 220 just to give it a little bit more of a smoother finish. I think it looks pretty darn nice. Definitely not perfect. Like I said, there's still some spots on there from where maybe the grinder was a little more aggressive. If I get close, you can see some of those spots, but I mean, it feels nice. Looks a heck of a lot smoother than all those lines that were left from when they shaped the fender. So anyway, I'm happy with that, and I think any other inconsistencies, like I said before, will get taken out by the primer. I'll probably do a few coats and a little bit of hand sanding, and then that should look pretty nice. All right, this is the primer that I'm going to use, filler primer, high build formula. So we'll see how well it does. Like I said, these aren't like super deep at all. But like any finish, any imperfections will show up. So we'll see how well this works for filling in those little spots. So there it is, all primed up. That high build primer that I used, I think did a really good job. And I mean, if you look close, you can't really see in the video, but if you look close in person, you can see some minor imperfections, but you got to be pretty darn close to be looking at it. So I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. You know, if you're doing the same thing to the fender, then, you know, it's up to you to figure out what color you want to paint it, and then put a clear coat on there. I'm going to use that 2K clear coat because I'm going to do the same thing to my front fender and my gas tank. Apparently that 2K stuff does really well against gasoline, and I'm sure anything else that's going to, you know, attack your paint. So I'll make another video when I go to mount this thing, and just to show you how I mount it, the process. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to mounting that either, so it's going to be a good learning process for me. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and like I said, this is just my take on how to smooth out a fender without any fancy metal shop tools. Just an angle grinder. After that, an orbital sander, which I clearly went through a whole bunch of sanding pads. It's not really meant for sanding metal, but, you know, when that's all you have, that's all you have. So that's it. Thanks for watching.